Hi there guys, my name is Forrest from contentflows.io, and in this video we're going to be selecting a niche. So we're going to look at everything you need to consider when building a niche site and actually working out whether you're going to be in a viable niche or if the niche is too competitive or not worth attacking. So I use this method when I build my own niche sites, or if I'm buying a site. This is exactly what I look at when I'm piecing everything together. So it's really useful, especially for beginners. You don't want to have to put 600-700 bits of content and spend 5k a month on backlinks to actually move the needle. We want these small wins, but sites that are actually going to grow, so you can start seeing your traffic moving up and scale it from there. So this is using completely free tools. I never use any paid kind of insights when I select my niches, but this is a very simple high level guide on how to do it. So let's kick off with the industry. So before you kind of get married to the idea of any niche or any industry, you need to think really high level. Are you going to write sort of outdoor content? Are you going to write hobby content? Are you going to write content in the financial markets? That's what I mean by industry. So we really high level, where are you thinking initially? Now there's loads of different niches in all of the industries. There's obviously hundreds of niches in an industry, so we don't have to kind of marry the idea by any means. And there's a lot of chopping and changing that can be done, but you need an idea of the industry you're thinking about targeting and potentially building a site in. So let's say for this example, we're looking at sort of outdoors, maybe gardening, maybe lifestyle, maybe home. That's kind of what we're thinking in terms of building a site. Now we need to think about the actual niche. So you don't want to build a site that's too broad. Now the reason for this is there's a kind of SEO term or SEO theory called topical authority. Now when it comes to topical authority, essentially in the eyes of Google, you want to build a lot of content around one single topic. That's going to show Google that you're very knowledgeable about that one topic, and it builds that authority for you around said topic. If you're kind of spraying content everywhere and not really focusing on one thing, obviously there's sites that do that, but unless you've got a massive site or you've been around for a decade, have a huge amount of links, etc., you're not going to get anywhere unless you really niche down on what you're looking at. So then we need to select the niche. So let's say we're thinking about lifestyle / outdoor, kind of home is the industry we're looking at. In the niche, let's trial gardening. Let's think about the gardening niche. What can we really achieve in that niche? Now, gardening itself is, again, a very large niche. You're going to find some niches that are very small, but some are going to be very large. And gardening is a huge niche with a lot of competition, which for a brand new site like we're thinking about here, that's a big problem. We can't just make a gardening site. We need to niche down again to a sub niche that's a lot less competitive, so we can actually get our feet under the table. And you can see these arrows here. Now the reason I've drawn these arrows in is because we really don't want to pigeonhole ourselves in a tiny sub niche. If we start in just a very tiny sub niche, and there's no scope in broadening our horizons because we've made the whole site around this, or we've picked a domain that's purely talking about the sub niche, for instance, we're going to struggle to start building out more content when we run out of content in that sub niche. So just bear that in mind, that you're going to have to kind of branch back out of your sub niche at some point, because there just won't be enough content there to keep writing for years and years to come. Now, this is where you can use ChatGPT. So we've decided that the niche is going to be gardening. I personally don't know anything about gardening, and that's why I would enlist the help of ChatGPT or any kind of AI tool to just give me some sub-niches in the gardening niche, in this case. So it spat out some really interesting things that obviously I've never heard of nor would think about. So we've got organic gardening here, urban gardening, permaculture, container gardening, vertical gardening. You get the idea. There's lots of different types of gardening that most people aren't going to be aware of unless they're into gardening, which is great, because if we haven't heard of these things, unless you're into that thing, into gardening, that's going to probably mean that it's quite a small and not very competitive niche, which is great. You know, insurance, everyone's heard of it, everyone knows about it, everyone has insurance, meaning it's going to be very competitive. Vertical gardening, however, I hadn't heard of this, so maybe it's not too competitive. So when you've got a list of potential sub niches to start looking at, that's when you want to just search the sub niches on Google, like we've done here, vertical gardening, and see what comes up. And what we're looking for here is a few must-haves. So we want, ideally in this sub niche, we want low competition, we want commercial intent, ability to scale up, as we've talked about here, and informational queries. Now let's take these one by one. The reason we want low competition is, as I've said, if we're a new site with no domain authority, we're never going to be outranking these, really big authority sites. So we want the potential to rank for content even if we've got a low domain authority and a pretty new site. Okay, so low competition is a must-have. Commercial intent. Now this is a really interesting one, and as you can see here on vertical gardening, we've already got commercial intent because we're being shown products by Google. Now this is great. If we're in a niche that doesn't have any commercial intent and there's nothing to really buy for readers, you're going to make a lot less money than if you were in a commercial niche, right? So there should always be products that you're looking to list on your site, whether as an affiliate or sell them yourself, as this is a huge revenue driver for niche sites. The ability to scale up into the niche, obviously vertical gardening is just one aspect of gardening, so we could easily scale back into the gardening niche and expand our horizon. So we're not pigeonholing ourselves at all by talking about vertical gardening. And we want informational queries. So we don't just want to write commercial content. If we write commercial content, we're going to be competing with the likes of Amazon and all of the really, really large authority sites that have a monopoly over the commercial search terms. Obviously, commercial search terms such as best whatever you need for vertical gardening are going to be a real breadwinner. They're going to make you a decent amount of money compared to informational queries. However, we won't get them with a new site, so we need to focus on primarily informational queries. Now, again, I know nothing about vertical gardening, and I would expect you to know nothing potentially about the sub niche you're looking at as well. So this is when we look at these search results, okay? So let's just have an eyeball and see here what's coming up. So we've got some really big authority sites here, just searching for the actual keyword of vertical gardening. We've got a charity here, we've got Good Housekeeping, Country Living. We're never going to compete with those kinds of sites, which is absolutely fine because we don't need to. And now we're going to use the People Also Ask feature. Okay, so in Google, if you're not aware, there's a People Also Ask, or PAA feature, and every time you click one of these potential questions, it will open a few more here at the bottom. Okay, and the add-on I'm using to give us further insights, as you can see here, is something called Mozbar. So Mozbar is a free Chrome extension. You just need a free Moz account, and it will give you the domain authority of the sites and the inbound links of the sites you're looking at in the SERPs. Now this is going to be really useful, and at this point what I like to do is just take a look at the competition. Okay, so we've got Plants on Walls here. Plants on Walls sounds to me like a whole site dedicated to vertical gardening, which is fine. They've amassed a domain authority of 45, which for a sub niche is really, really strong, which is great that it's actually possible to grow a site that far. So just taking an eyeball at the site, obviously they're selling products as well, which is really good for us that there's some commercial intent here. And the site looks fine, it's nothing to write home about, but it looks okay. We can do a query on Google here as well. So if you type site : the domain address here, and then I've typed vertical after that. Now this is going to give us every article they've ever written where the meta description or the title is talking about vertical gardening, which again gives us a real insight into the kind of content they're writing. So at this point, I would take a bit of time scanning through their content and really looking at what they're writing. And we can see here, obviously, they've got how many, over 500 results of content they've written about vertical gardening, which is great news for us that there's that much content out there about vertical gardening. And then I would just rummage through the SERPs and have a look at the kind of sites we're seeing in terms of domain authority. Because these guys are winning kind of the Google snippets, right? They're featured here on the People Also Ask. And they've got a domain authority of 29, which is really low in the grand scheme of it. Here, obviously, a really broad question about vertical gardening, 53. And just scroll through, there's a site here with a domain authority of 13 that are ranking for are there drawbacks to using a vertical garden. That's probably going to generate a decent amount of traffic per year or per month, and they've got pretty much no domain authority and no inbound links. That's a great sign for us. And we scroll through again here, what are we looking at? Designer, verticalgardens.com.au, they've got domain authority of 25. They're ranking really well for one of their sort of FAQ pages, which is really good news for us. We wouldn't really struggle to outrank that. Again, disadvantages of green walls, we've got domain authority of 14 here. So we can see just at an eyeball, there's sites with really low domain authorities that are ranking really, really well in this niche. So if we're coming in with a new site with a domain authority of, 5, 6, or even if you're purchasing a domain and you've got a domain authority of sort of 15 or 20 or something, from one of those expired domain auctions, we're in a really good spot with this niche. I would be very concerned if we're seeing sort of 400 plus links on the left here and domain authorities of 60, 70, 80. We're never going to be able to compete with that, right? But we're seeing low domain authority across the board, not many backlinks to any of the pages we're seeing that are winning the snippets. We're seeing frequently asked pages here, and again, no links, no domain authority. So for me, this is a niche worth exploring. So we've ticked pretty much all the boxes in terms of, from an eyeball, low competition, there's commercial intent, they're all selling products, ability to scale back into gardening or some of these other gardening sub-niches would not be a problem, and there's a lot of informational queries, as we can tell from the People Also Ask feature on Google. There is a lot of content, and these guys have written over 500 articles about vertical gardening. So again, I would spend a lot more time pretty much rinsing and repeating what we've just done. Are low competition sites or low domain authority sites with no links actually ranking? If so, let's take a look at their content, and see, is it thin content? Is it good content? And this is what we do. And we just kind of cycle through this until we're pretty sure that we like the niche. Looking at this site here, we've got a nice picture, which is fine, one intro paragraph, a couple of bullet points, really thin content, and that's it. Okay, and they're taking the snippet. So all good news so far. But again, spend a bit more time running through the niche, and this is a great way to start filtering out niches. I would probably do this with 5 or 6 niches, compare all of them, and see where my time should be spent. But as I said at the beginning of this tutorial, my name is Forrest from Content Flows. We write SEO optimized content for niche site owners, bloggers, and small brands. So if you're interested in having any content written for you, please do click the link in the description or jump over to the site or even drop me a message and we shall have a chat. But I'll see you in the next video.